In our culture, when somebody comes to you with a problem,
Mm-hmm.
I feel like a lot of the time, I feel like a lot of time, the person listening, their response is, okay, I'm going to listen to your thing and then I'm going to offer you advice so we can fix the problem because I
Mm-hmm.
want to, I want to help you. I want to find you a solution.
Right.
And the interesting thing about So I was watching something. What was that? Jordan Peterson. That's who I was watching. So he's a famous clinical psychologist,
Mm-hmm.
and he was talking about therapy. And so he was mentioning something about basically you can tell a person the answer to the struggles they're having
Right.
is this, this, and this, and this. But until the desire to actually do those things comes from within them,
Right.
they're not actually going to do it.
Amen.
And so, what's interesting about just listening to somebody,
Mhm.
and that's what Mr. Peterson was saying, a good therapist is trained to do more than anything else is to simply listen without getting in the way. When you just listen to somebody, it basically allows them space to start processing what they're going through.
Mhm.
And what you find is when people feel like they've been heard, they start to find solutions to their problems. And, they might require somebody, to kind of point them in a direction. But ultimately, the result of the therapy is that they actually come up with the solutions to their own problems. So I bring this up just to I want to point out that listening is a very, very powerful thing. So this is kind of my to all the Snarp Fangle people out there, if somebody comes to you and wants to talk to you about something they're struggling with, my sort of, and this is actually advice as opposed to the stopping medication thing. This is actually advice that I would say resist the urge to try and fix their problem right there and right then and simply listen. Because honestly, the power of listening to somebody is very understated I feel like in our culture. So that's all I wanted to talk about.
And it's interesting because I think we've all had those moments where people come up to us and they want to, it just happened to come to the topic of what they're dealing with, what they're going through. And I think you're right, David. I think especially what Peterson goes into, he is so on point with how the human mind works and how to handle that. And it's cool to see his spiritual walk and him trying to figure and wrap his mind around that. That's his next goal and what he's been working through the last couple of years. But anyway, I think, yes, listening is the key, really. I mean, I've experienced it in so many different scenarios. I mean, from youth ministry to working at Butte, just all aspects of life. And with teenagers specifically, it's really difficult because they don't want to talk, like you were bringing up, Stephanie. So it's you kind of have to pin and prod and just bring up stuff and kind of navigate what they're wanting to, what they're going through, And sometimes it's just being a presence. Excuse me. Sometimes it's just being a presence with them. And that is a huge help. I remember when we were going through the pandemic in our tutoring center, we would just have students working with a tutor and they would just be in the same Zoom call. And they wouldn't ask, they were there if they, needed help, asking for help, that kind of thing. But they mostly just needed somebody there, not like an accountability partner, but somebody that is there so that they can oh, somebody's there. Let me focus on my work now instead of just doing it by themselves. And I found that really, really interesting because I'm in my mind is my mind, I'm analyzing oh, it's accountability, blah, blah, blah. And I'm doing my work. So somebody's there. So I'm oh, kind of if somebody starts cleaning something, you kind of have, everybody's different, but some people have the urge oh, if they're doing something like that, I should probably be doing the same thing. Or we were talking about the taco feed, we kind of want to avoid the kids sitting down on the job a lot of the times because once one sits down, then the next one sits down and then it becomes a normalized thing. So I find it really important because I mean, even I think of my experience in a lot of the computer science classes, which By the way, David, I was going to bring up, I never took any of the GE at Butte College ever. I took one GE class and that was it. It was like college life or whatever. And I avoided all of it because I just wanted to take the computer stuff. And that's all I took was the computer stuff. I didn't take any GE. I never got my degree. I think all I have to do is go finish my GE and that's it. Then I can get something. But I just avoided that because I knew I can't do math and English. Like I could, but it would be tough. But again, you have to have that right teacher to teach you. So, but anyway, in the CSCI classes, there was a lot of veterans and I got to meet and talk with a lot of them. And it was interesting because I kind of half expected some of them to be like, and a lot of them are no nonsense, including Linda was the same way. So it was kind of perfect. She had to work with a lot of veterans because they had the same wavelength, like no nonsense, stuff like that. Like life is like stupid enough. Don't bring more silliness into it. But they went through, there's a lot of folks that went through a lot. And it was really enlightening to talk to them about their experiences and what they're going through and figuring out. I mean, from people who have helper animals to, you know, folks who are just there trying to, you know, get a better job, you know, something easier for them to do and that they can focus on. And it was really cool to help them out. And I worked with a lot of veterans too in my line of work. And it's always important to listen. Whether it be the kid come fresh out of high school, the old folk that are coming back to school. And by old folk, I mean like people in their 60s and 70s, not just, you know, back to school 30s, 40s, 50s, which are also there too. But with all those kind of folks, it's so important to listen because you never know what everybody's going through. You don't know. You never know what kind of journey they're on or where they're at. And you're just kind of it sounds kind of mean, but you are in a way a stepping stone in their path or something that they're coming alongside in their path. And it's only going to be for a temporary time or just for a season even, or a semester.
Oh, David.
And we'll cut that out. But it's, I think listening's the key. And there's been a lot of points where I've failed and I wasn't listening.
Right.
And I can think back on that and look back and say, oh man, I should not have like interjected there or something like that. But, you know, you live and you learn.
So if I can,
go
on
for
that subject. So I'm going to go back to what David said. And a mantra in the agency I work at is that you lead a horse to water, but necessarily not make them drink it. And clearly in my own life that people, even my parents after my diagnosis, they were not surprised, right? I got diagnosed with a bipolar 2 disorder, which back in the day was called manic, some major depressive, something. And I recently just found that out from my therapist. She goes, bipolar 2 is equated to that because similar to autism, the spectrum, bipolar is like the big thing now. Everyone has bipolar disorder. I'm exaggerating. So
sure feels that way sometimes. You know.
So oh my goodness. So leave the horse to water concept and active listening. That we're actually trained at my job to do active listening. So I'm not there to give you advice. I'm just listening to your story. And clearly when you're talking, yes, oh, I get it. Not necessarily I understand because these are your experiences. Yeah. Any advice that I'm going to give you is going to be based on my life, my values, my beliefs, and my experiences. And I'm not, and this other thing that I try to affirm with my family as well. Am I listening to you or am I giving you advice? Or am I just going to wait for my turn to talk? And I'm not really listening. I'm not doing active listening, right? So those are things that I feel like everyone struggles with too. And I really was thinking about that when you're talking. But I was listening to you, David, just saying. I wasn't just waiting for my turn to talk. I promise, David. Thanks. Wow. I feel like it was like 2 against 1 today. So...
All against David? What?
No, all against me.
Oh, you? What are you talking? I thought it was you guys against me. No.
Jake, you getting sassy.
Yeah. Anyway. Shoot, where were you going with that? You were active listening and...
Yeah, I was just...
Yeah. Okay.
piggyback on him. I don't know. You're in your own world.
I guess
right now.
I guess I was in my little world, but
Were you active listening to me, Jake?
probably not.
I didn't think
apologize.
so. Tune me out. I
But-
see you did. Okay.
Well, I think back on like there's several experiences I've had where people like just and just all their like life story comes out, and I'm just sitting there like, okay, whatever,
Right, for
that's
sure.
happened enough times where I'm like, just okay, cool. Like
Mhm.
if that's what we're talking about right now, that's what we're talking about. No
Mm-hmm.
worries. And my job is kind of like to help people in that in terms of like school can be really stressful and
Mhm.
extremely stressful, and that's my job to kind of help them along and to be like, oh hey, this is how you do that, and that's how you do this, and no rush, and go through the process, and most importantly, teach them how to use a computer so that they don't have to come back to me. That's one thing that I really strive to do. And so I'll like give them the mouse and keyboard. I won't grab it. I'll let them do it, and I'll point to where they need to go.
Mhm.
And it's really, truly, you can provide all the answers, kind of like Jordan Peterson was saying. You can
Yeah.
provide all the answers to their problems,
Mhm.
but, and especially in youth ministry when we were doing this, like you can give people the answers, the word, the gospel, all that kind of stuff,
Mhm.
but it's up to them.
The
in the end.
tools. It doesn't
The
really.
tools,
Yeah.
all
The
that stuff.
goals.
Yeah. And
Yeah.
sometimes people will know the solution. And I've struggled with this too in walks of my different parts of my life. Like I know the solution, but I'm not going to do it.
Yeah.
Like they have to take the initiation to do
Yeah.
it. They
for
have
sure.
to take the imperative to fix.
I feel like you like closed in on the right word. You were like circling around it. You said initiation and then imperative, but you meant to say initiative.
Sorry, initiative. I was so close.
Coming in hot with that.
Initiative.
You were circling around it.
Yeah, the initiative.
That was
I was waiting for David to correct him. I was like, David's going to do it. I won't do it. They're going to kick me off this podcast. So.